Let's get more now. We can speak to Carla, the former US ambassador to Denmark under President Trump. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Always a pleasure talking to you, Ambassador. Not quite 100 days, we're nearly there. What would you single out as being the most important achievements of this new Trump administration when it comes to foreign policy?
It's extremely exciting to talk about because President Trump is working so hard and so fast, and his whole team is as well. So I think if my highlights would be that, it's the promises made, promises kept. He promised to make us wealthy again, to make us healthy again, to make us safe again. And you can see that he's working on getting more reciprocal trade deals and reindustrializing the U.S. He's working to with RFK Jr. to make us healthy again, finding the cause of autism, like what a concept that you would actually do a scientific study and find out what's causing this terrible attack on our children, and getting things like unsafe dyes out of our food. But then he's also secured the border. It's making us safe again, stopping the flow of fentanyl, the #1 killer of young Americans, and also the bad hombres that have been coming over our border and that are not welcome.
Okay, but specifically on the world stage, looking at these 100 days through the prism of foreign policy, what's been achieved, would you say?
Okay, I think that in my opinion, so my personal opinion is that what's been achieved is our friends know they're our friends. And the people that are not treating us well know it. We've put them on notice. You can see how he's pulling in so many countries, getting a good trade deal done that doesn't hurt American manufacturers, for instance. I think that looking at how President Trump views the world, he doesn't want to start new wars and he wants to end current wars. We can all be appreciative that he's using his influence and his position to end the Hamas-Israel war and also the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Indeed. I mean, he did promise that would happen rather quicker than at day 99. And we haven't quite got there yet, have we? We're not over the line.
No, he did. Actually, what he said was he thought that the Hamas-Israel war would be pretty quick. And he said it's going to be harder and take longer to get the war between Ukraine and Russia settled. And you can see, Putin's suggesting this 72-hour pause, but Putin's also continuing to attack Ukraine. And both sides have been a little hard to really get to the table and understand that nobody gets everything that they want. But certainly he's working very hard, and his team, to get this done. You saw the iconic photo, perhaps, of President Trump and Zelensky there at the Vatican meeting and working out a deal.
Yeah, that photograph in stark contrast to the scenes in the Oval Office 6 or 7 weeks previously, which perhaps was the other big standout scene when it comes to foreign policy from these last 99/100 days. This keenness to appease Russia is that's how it's seen internationally, that President Trump is making concessions to the Russians and occasionally throwing, good old friend Ukraine under the bus every now and then with the occasional European ally. That is the perception out there from some countries, from some news outlets. How do you respond to that? And why do you think President Trump is so keen to patch ties up with President Putin? What's in it for America?
Well, first of all, a lot of that is fake news. You can see that there's this narrative. They even talked about how they hid Joe Biden's mental diminishment in the coverage of the last administration, and how people in the United States have actually lost faith with legacy media. Maybe not around the world, but here in the U.S., we've seen the lies, whether it was COVID lies, the lockdown lies, the Russia hoax lies over the first Trump administration. So people don't believe the news media when they talk about these things. We know that they're making stuff up to hurt the opposition. Most U.S. media is working for the left and the leftist Democrats. But I'm excited that President Trump is reasserting America's place in the world, and that he knows we need to have better relations with Russia because we don't want Russia to be the closest of friends with China. And certainly that was a very bad plan from the beginning. Biden let that happen. Every president before knew that that was a bad idea and that we should not encourage or push Russia into China's arms. I mean, Russia's now, it's almost like they work for China in the things that they do. And China's helping them finance and helping them in many ways in this Ukraine war. So we want to have a better relationship with Russia. Certainly, we need to cooperate with Russia in the Arctic. They're the biggest player in the Arctic as far as their landmass and their power in that region. And we need to reassert Western power in that region, just as one example.
Yeah, I want to get on to Greenland in just a moment because, of course, that's where you served and that's a hot topic. And we've talked about it before, Ambassador. But there are some analysts saying that these policies, foreign policies of this new Trump administration are conversely pushing traditional allies towards China, not only as a market for their goods because of the tariffs, but also because of the void that has been created by the withdrawal of U.S. Aid projects all over the world. And the Chinese are only too happy to fill that void. I mean, isn't this going to cost the United States soft power?
Well, I think that could be an issue. And so I think that we want to make sure that we continue a good dialogue with all of our friends, our allies, our trading partners, and that we certainly remind them of the dangers of being tied in trade to China, which uses trade and uses all relations that countries have with China as a cudgel, and how unfair the trade is. I know Secretary of Scott Bessent is working on these issues and talking to our allies because, for instance, the abuses that China has weighed in at the WTO, at the IMF. China is the biggest abuser in every way of using our laws and our open societies against us, stealing and bribing and using propaganda in ways that have enriched their country, and their national law requires every Chinese citizen, and they say even people with Chinese descent, to steal and to bring back information that benefits the CCP. So it's a rogue regime. It's run by gangsters, and that's a bad group to get involved with.
Let's go back to the part of the world that perhaps you know best. I don't know, perhaps outside the United States, Denmark, where you served as ambassador. How many years were you there?
I was there from 2017 to 2021. Right.
So you know that area well. I don't know if you still go back there, but do you see a day that you go back to Greenland, which is, of course, under Danish sovereignty, and find it one day is actually part of the United States of America? Is that a scenario you envisage?
Well, I think that Greenland wants to go independent, and I think that because they've said it. So I believe what people say, and they've said it publicly. So if they're going to go independent, they're going to need a trade partner and a security partner. And Denmark, even today, with them being part of the Danish kingdom, can't defend Greenland and has never bothered to develop Greenland. There's not a road between two towns in Greenland. They lack infrastructure to benefit the Greenlanders when it comes to their mining. They need more development for their tourism. And I was able, when I was ambassador, to get them funds to help them grow their economy in the ways they wanted to. But it was just a beginning.
Do people in Greenland tell you they want to be American?
They want to be Greenlandic. They say we are open for business, but they don't want to be taken over. And there are ways to associate with the United States and be independent, like a free association agreement. It's called a COFA. And other countries like Micronesia and Palau do have those kinds of relationships with the United States where they're sovereign nations, but we have trade and we have defense agreements. And Greenland would benefit from American trade where U.S. companies can go in and invest, and they have the backstop of the U.S. government. We have mechanisms to do that, like Exim Bank and also DFC, Development Finance Corporation, that are arms of the U.S. government, but they guarantee investments when it's a tough place to invest. And Greenland's a tough place to invest.
Quite harsh terrain in some parts of that territory as well. But when we saw J.D. Vance arriving there with his wife, and originally it was going to be there's going to be quite a bit more fanfare than there ultimately was, because he just limited his visit to a US base. Do you think he went about that in the right way? I mean, there's a certain sensitivity, isn't there, to arriving in a country having insinuated previously that you might sort of absorb it into your own country. Do you think he went about it in the way you'd like to have seen him go about it?
Well, I think that Greenlanders missed an amazing opportunity, because the second lady, Usha Vance, was supposed to go and wave the flag at it's the equivalent of the Super for Greenland. It's their big dog sled race. And the U.S. government had given assets to help them have a successful race. And she was part of this. And so this was a diplomatic visit. Every country wants a diplomatic visit in the world from the U.S. And she's a very high-level official, being the wife of the vice president. But the Danish government, their media, and their sort of apparatus poisoned the water for that visit and really scuttled the whole thing. They did it because they don't want the Greenlanders to have a good relationship with the United States. They want no relationship at this point. They're so upset about what President Trump has been saying. But the fact is, they're not looking at the facts. The fact is, Greenland wants to go independent. They want to be independent. They don't want to be part of part of Denmark. Denmark oppressed the Greenlanders. They treated them very cruelly, and they did not allow them to develop. They did not allow them to live like people in Denmark live years ago. And so they send about $600 million a year as welfare to Greenland, but then they get so many benefits. The shipping goes through Denmark. The flights go through Denmark. Then they have the benefits of business investments. And so net, I'm sure Denmark comes out ahead in this relationship.
Okay, so that's Greenland, but there are other countries and bits of infrastructure around the world that President Trump has expressed a keen interest in, shall we say. One is Canada. Will that be the 51st state of the United States? And another is the Panama Canal. I mean, is there an expansionist agenda in the White House, in your view?
I'm not sure why President Trump said what he did about Canada. I've been very sad to see the loss of free speech in Canada and how the Canadian government has treated the citizens over the past about a decade. But it really ramped up during COVID and after COVID. It's been shocking to see. And also, they've opened their borders to unbridled immigration, which really, you lose the culture of a place when you don't have control of who comes in. And they now have a fentanyl problem because of those open borders. They actually have a fentanyl problem, I'm told. When I was at the Canadian embassy just about a week ago, they informed me of this, and it's tragic. But Panama Canal is a different subject. We have to have the ability to move our military equipment and shipping through the Panama Canal. The United States paid for the Panama Canal. We built the Panama Canal. Most Americans don't agree with Jimmy Carter. We should never have ceded that back to Panama. And when I went down to the Panama Canal, I saw how much Chinese activity was there. I went to the canal, viewed it, saw the signs in Chinese. I went to their touristic video to see what they were showing people. And a lot of it was China, China, China. I think probably Chinese propaganda had produced the video that I saw at that time. It's about a year and a half ago that I was there. So China has an outsized influence in Panama. The United States cannot allow that right in our hemisphere. But we've got bigger problems. Even in Lima, Peru, Chancay Port is the biggest Chinese investment in the Western Hemisphere. That port is only 1/4 finished. It's going to be gigantic. The United States had the opportunity to build that port, but China stepped up. So there are so many missed opportunities. President Trump is looking at our hemisphere and saying, we need to make sure we secure it. Americans agree with him.
All right. I'm so sorry to cut you short, but we're actually out of time. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. Carla Sands, former U.S. ambassador to Denmark.
Great to be with you, Tom. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thanks.